Welcome to another episode of the Andrew Roman Show. I'm so glad you're joining in today. And today is a special episode. It's one of a kind. We have another exclusive interview. So I got to tell you right now, you don't want to click out of this video. You got to watch the entire thing because it's going to be worth it. I'm joined by a very special guest of mine, which I'll introduce him in just a second. Because if you watched any of the interviews, you know we've talked about school, we've talked about faith and freedom and addictions. We've even talked about politics. But today we're talking about a very prevalent topic, leadership. And here to join me to talk about this topic is Robbie Rembao. How are you, man?
Hey, man. Good. I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me here.
Dude, I know. It's awesome having you. And actually, for those that didn't know, fun fact, one of the reasons that I really wanted to have him on is because, like, way back when I actually visited him in Mexico, he's the one guy who really encouraged me to start my podcast. He was starting his podcast, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, but then he encouraged to start my podcast. So, man, even like a couple weeks before I texted you, I was like, I need to have this guy on to talk about this.
This is so good. It's so good to hear that, man. I didn't know that I was part of this. So, man, that's awesome. And congratulations, man, for having this podcast. It's awesome.
Hey, thank you. And, well, Robbie, tell us a little bit about yourself for people who don't know you, where you from, what your family is like, what you're dedicated to. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So, my name is Roberto Rembao, right?
Yeah.
So, everybody calls me Robbie since I was little. So, Robbie Rembao. Yeah. And I'm here I'm from Guadalajara, Mexico. And we first met here years and years ago. Yeah. And so I'm a pastor here in Guadalajara with my wife. We both, I was going to say, we both are doing ministry full time, but my wife just transitioned out of ministry.
Really?
So she just started a business, and awesome. She's still in ministry.
Right. Yeah.
She's not going to go anywhere. But a couple of months ago, she started a business, and she transitioned the worship team to someone else. And so that's new.
Well, that's a big change. Yeah, that's a big change because I know. A couple months ago when I was in Mexico, she was kind of leading the whole worship thing and all that. But I'm sure that's a big transition. And you have two. Do you have a third one? Two beautiful daughters. I know that.
Yes, we have two.
They're so cute.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we're in love with those girls, man. They're amazing. And so the oldest one is 4 years old, and then the other one is a year and a half. So they're still very little. Yeah. But we're loving life, man, with them.
That's awesome. And for people who are just thinking, okay, he said he's from Mexico, but how is he speaking English so well? Well, for those people that don't know, there are a lot of people who speak English in Mexico, okay? We don't all speak Mexican, all right?
Right.
We don't speak...
Just clarifying,
I know. Tell us, so you lived in Australia for a bit, which... Pause right there. That just took his credibility level to a whole new level. Like, if you weren't listening to him before, he's basically Australian. He's in the level of Chris Hemsworth and the rest of Australians, dude. But what took you to Australia?
So my wife and I, we got married, and then a couple of months after that, it was a whole plan to go study. So we went to Hillsong College. Some of you might know it, Hillsong College. We went there. We studied 3 years there, and then we got back to our home church. But we spent 3 years over there.
Dang, that's so cool. And I know that's where you told me, and we'll get to the topic of leadership actually in just a couple seconds. But I know that's where you told me that you developed a love for coffee. As a barista.
Yes.
Like this guy, I got to tell you, if you're a coffee lover, I don't know. I've met some coffee lovers, but we had a whole conversation. Like, I felt like it was 30 to 40 minutes on the different ways that coffee is brewed and the inception.
Man, coffee is just like a whole another level, man. Like, I love it. I love coffee, and you guys brought me one of the best coffees ever. Like this.
Yes.
I remember you guys saying it was a new cafe in town, and it was amazing. Those beans were great.
Good. I'm glad.
Yes.
And it was actually, when you were talking about Hillsong, going to kind of the topic of leadership, when I asked you, like, one of the things that you've learned about Hillsong was a lot about leadership, because you actually have a podcast about that, right? You have a podcast.
That's right.
It's for all my bilingual speakers. That's Construyendo el Liderazgo with Robbie Rembao. which I love your intros. It's good, man. I was just listening to an episode yesterday. But what kind of got you going about wanting to talk about leadership?
So, well, here's the thing, you said it right at the beginning, because people, when they hear leadership, they hear like position, and they hear like this thing about, having to have a position or having to have a title, but they don't know that we're all leaders, because John Maxwell says that leadership is influence, and without just getting into it a lot right now, I guess speaking about leadership was something that was in my heart, because I saw I think that there is a lot of, there's a lot of like resources, right?
Yeah.
For leaders that are in the top of the organization, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of resources for people that are leading the whole thing.
Like the CEOs or the senior pastors or something.
That's right. But there's not a lot of resources for leaders under leaders.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
So my heart was to start a conversation about leadership for those that are leading people, but also being led. So it's really important for us to learn how to be led, because our ability to lead other people is not gonna be greater than our ability to submit to our leaders.
Okay, right? wait. I'm sorry. You already started with fire, dude. If you know me, I gotta like stop. And I said like tweet that or something. Can you kind of say that again? You said something about our ability to lead is something with our ability to submit. How was that?
Yeah. So we cannot lead other people past the point where we have been led to,
Wow.
So when we learn how to submit, when we learn how to be led by other people, then we're able to lead people. But if we have never obeyed other people, if we've never been under somebody else's vision, then why would we have a vision of our own and lead people through it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah, I think that's like the beginning of our leadership when you're not the senior leader.
I think that's such a great point, especially just for like the younger generation. And I think you touched it just at the beginning when you said that like we're all kind of leaders. Sometimes you think maybe if you're a college student, if you're young adult, you're a teenager, you're like, I don't know, leadership it's for business people. It's for. I mean, I study kind of business leadership, so it's just for business people. But you said it like John. I think you quoted John Maxwell. Like leadership is influence, and we live right now in the world where it doesn't matter who you are, you have influence. Whether it be on social media, whether it be just with your family, with your friends. As we're going back to a normal world after quarantine, right, where you can see your friends. And but I think you said it like all of us have influence, and I want us to focus so much because I think, Robbie, we live in a culture, man, where we're so kind of like individualistic, where I don't need anyone to tell me anything, you know. But I think you nailed it in the head, where you can't decide to be a leader if you're not being led somewhere.
Yes.
And I don't know if you could talk more about that point where, why should people who are listening, you touched on a little bit, but why should people listening right now who are not in the position of quote unquote leadership, they're not CEOs, they're not, maybe they work in the fast food, restaurant, and that's it. Like, they're the guy flipping burgers, or they're like, I'm not even working, I'm just studying college, or I'm just starting high school. Why should they care about leadership?
Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and just keep quoting John Maxwell on this, because he says that leadership is influence, and that someone that is, there's people that are introverts, and they kind of feel like, oh, I don't influence anybody, like I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not type A personality, so people think that leaders have to be like these guys that are like super outspoken and like extrovert and stuff like that. But, when you have influence, John Maxwell says that someone that is an introvert would at least influence about 10,000 people in his life. So we would all influence people. Someone else will see you doing something, and that will give them permission to do it. So whatever it is, your siblings, the people around you, your workmates, your classmates, whoever that is, whatever you do would give permission to someone else to do that. Good. So you have to be responsible for your actions, and doing that, being responsible for what you do and what you say, is being a leader. And we can either choose to be a good leader, or just to be someone that, goes with the flow and follows everybody. So I think we're all called to be leaders, to be in front of things, and just decide and make good choices for other people to be influenced by them.
Yeah. I think you nailed it, and I think that kind of touches on a subject that I remember when I took like some speech and debate classes, and they were talking about leadership and the whole thing, and there was this kind of this quote that they were saying, asking whether it was true or false, and this was it was that leaders are born, not made. And I think that's like a big thing. Sometimes we think, I mean, you mentioned it, like if you're an introvert, you might be thinking, I don't even influence anybody, but you said it, like at least you'll influence 10,000 people. Try to put 10,000 people in the building. That's a lot of people. Definitely. So, and that's in your lifetime. What could you speak to that kind of like? What's your opinion on that? Of like leaders are born, or are they made, or is it like a little bit of both? I know you kind of touched on it already, but could you expound on that?
Yeah. Well, look. Here's the thing. Everyone is born, right?
Right.
So like you can't just think that a leader is born. We're all born. We're all made. We're all created. We come from a place of greatness. We come from a place of influence. We come from a place that we were never meant to just exist and that's it.
Yeah. That's
so
good.
Yes, of course leaders are made, like your decisions and the environment and the people around you start forming you and make you the leader you are. Like I would never be I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't because I spent 3 years in Australia, right? But neither I would be who I am if I hadn't spent 6 months in the United States. I didn't say this, but I became a Christian in the States. Wow. I became a Christian in California. So I spent 6 months there, and that like formed my life. And we can go back all the way up to my childhood. Those times also formed me as a leader and as a man. So I don't think leaders are only born. I do think that there's people that are born with certain abilities that help them lead. So maybe people that are born with this creativity or this ability to speak. Like one of the things that leaders do, they speak. So yeah, I do believe that there's people that are born with this ability. But that doesn't mean that, let's talk about Bill Gates, the guy, he's not like the best speaker, like he's not good at it, but you would never say that he's not a leader,
Right. So right. Yeah. No one would ever say that.
Yeah. There's abilities that will help you become an effective leader, but if you don't have those abilities, that doesn't mean you cannot be a great leader.
I think you nailed it in the head, because I don't know, it's interesting because the culture that we're raised in right now is we're always trying to put excuses of why we're not something, right? Of like, whenever, it's interesting because we're very quick to identify with a negative label about ourselves. So if someone says you're stupid, you don't have to work to believe that. You're just like, yeah, I'm stupid, Or like when someone says you're dumb or you're not good enough or you're not a good leader, it's a lie of the enemy, but we kind of grab it without hesitation. But when someone says the truth that you said, that step one, you're all born, so congrats, you can all be a leader because you're born. But also that, like you said, you come from a place of greatness, that you do have a calling to be a leader, whether it be a more quiet leader or very outspoken leader, you're still called to be a leader. And that we shouldn't try to say, oh, that doesn't apply to me, that maybe applies to this person or that person. But and that just goes with, for anyone who's watched this podcast, that we always talk about just the value that you have as a human being because of God, because of who made you. And Robbie, you mentioned, okay, so everyone's born, and leaders are made through our experiences, through the lessons that we learned. I don't know, are there some lessons that you would say, like, you've learned from your experience, like this makes a good, because there are good leaders and there are bad leaders. Not every leader is a good leader. Are there kind of like some lessons that people can take away from saying, like, this can make you a good leader? Yeah.
So here's the thing. One of the I guess, lessons I've learned lately is that we need to be very grateful with the season we are in at the moment.
Okay.
Right? So as a leader, we just talked about it, you grow. Like, so you go from one level to another and you influence people, and, you start having maybe, you become more effective, you have more followers. If you do something like a podcast and stuff like that, you influence people in a broader space, etc. No? But it's really important to learn this, that the lower you are in leadership, and I'm talking about this, it's not that you have less value, but you get it, right? Like the lower you are in this process, of leadership, is the greater opportunities you have to deal with your ego, and to become humble, and to deal with your heart issues, and to deal with who you are. Because at the moment you start growing in leadership, those opportunities are less and less frequent, right? Because when you become the senior leader of the organization, there's not a lot of people that will tell you when you're wrong.
Right.
So you cannot deal with who you are, and you cannot deal with your heart the way you can at this moment, right? So we all need to really embrace the moment we're at, and take advantage of every opportunity to deal with our heart. Take advantage of, like, people, you just said it, people that work at a fast food place, right? And man, like, those places, they're not like, at least it's Chick-fil-A, right? But most of those places, they're not good places to work at. Chick-fil-A is blessed,
so Chick-fil-A is an exception.
Right. But if you work at like any other place, right? I've had like young people coming to me and be like, you know what? I'm going to quit my job because this guy, he's very mean. And my boss, he's telling me to do this and that. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, that's every single job. Like, don't quit it. That's life, just take advantage of that opportunity and just deal with your heart, and deal with your humility, and deal with the things that are happening.
Wow, I think you nailed it, because I don't think anyone probably listening to this expected you to talk about the heart, because probably someone said, oh, he's gonna give me some very practical lesson of like wake up early in the morning, right, and like go to the gym and pump out, and get. But instead, like you brought it to the heart, man. Would you say like that's? I would think like, is that one of like the hardest things about a leader? Definitely. Is working?
Well, here's the thing. Everything flows out of who you are. Everything you do comes out of your heart. Yeah. Right? Everything you say comes out of your heart. So if you're not dealing with your heart, if you're not dealing with your identity, if you're not dealing with your issues that nobody can see, then people are not going to see what you expect them to see.
Wow.
So like, we really, as leaders, we really need to take care of our heart. We really need to take care of our spirit. We really need to take care of our mind. We need to take care of the invisible things, and then the visible will take care of itself.
Yeah, I love that.
If who we are is not does not produces the things we want to do, then that's not going to work. You just said it. Go to the gym. We all want to be fit, right? We all want to be ripped and, like be like, yeah, come on. Everybody wants that, But here's the thing. You cannot just fake it.
Right.
You cannot just fake the habit. You can't fake the habit.
Right. Yeah, you can't.
But you can work in your identity. You can work in being someone that takes care of his health, of her health, right? If you're that person, then the gym will flow out of that. Yeah. But you cannot just fake it, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you can't just fake it. And I love that, because guys, if you can take away anything from this conversation, is that start focus on who you are. Because it's so funny you said that, because I literally, like, right before we got in this interview, I was just going through my Instagram, and Craig Rochelle, I follow Craig Rochelle. They're fantastic, obviously. Like, he's the one at the top, right? He's the top GOAT, guy. Man. Yeah, for sure. And then he was just sharing like a preaching of the do flows from the who, right? So like what you do should flow from who you are. And
Yes,
as
that's it.
Robbie was just saying, like there's so many of us that haven't actually worked on ourselves. You know, we've either blamed problems on other people. We blame them on circumstances. You know, like my boss is just mean, or there's coworkers, and that doesn't mean that's false, right? I'm sure that's true, but we all have control of who we are. You know, who we are. Dude, have you heard of the author Jocko Willink?
No.
Dude, oh man. Okay, so he's a Navy SEAL, retired Navy SEAL, and he wrote a book called Extreme Ownership.
Oh yes.
Okay, have you heard of the book? Probably you've heard of the book. So I have it like right there, and I'm reading it. But that's kind of like something about like working on your ego and like taking that step. And what would you say like to everyone right now? Because we've talked about, you know, if you're a young person, hey, you are in the position of leadership. It might not be quote unquote manager, you know, or whatever. I was going to try to find another word, but it's basically all managers or CEOs or bosses or a worship leader or a pastor. You might try, there's like 1,000 excuses of why you could say I'm not quote unquote a leader. But I think, like you said, that's one of the important. Now, what would you say are some of the things more practically that someone can say, okay, what are some things that I can work on myself? You know, on myself, like what are some things that good leaders, like good traits or something that a good leader can exhibit? Because like, how can someone know that they're getting better as a leader?
Well, look, years ago, I started asking this question to myself very often. So I would be in any kind of situation, you know, sometimes difficult situations, sometimes just like a situation where I'd be like, okay, what should I do? And here's the question I would ask to myself: what would a great leader do? So it doesn't matter if you're 12 years old, it doesn't matter if you're 45, right? What would a great leader do? So I think often of Craig Rochelle. You know, it's like, man, if Craig Rochelle was here, what would he do? You know, I mean, it sounds silly, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about it, when you're in a situation, let's talk about someone like a young person, right? And he's there's a mess, or there's something went wrong at his home, and you know there's issues with his family.
Yeah.
And then that young person can think, okay, what would a great leader do? You know, and a great leader would become part of the solution.
Wow.
You know, not part of the problem. So start thinking as a leader. Start thinking as someone that is leading something. Because when you get to the position when you're leading, then you would already have some runs on the board. You know, like you would already have some experience on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not gonna be new at it. You're just gonna be okay. I'm just gonna do it again. And I'm just gonna do it again.
Yeah.
And I think that's something else. Like one of the parts is, okay, what would a great leader do? And it's like I'm talking all about mindsets, right?
Right. Then, it's your mindset.
And it's a mindset. What would a great leader do? But then you have to do it again and again and again and again, right? So it's not about this one thing that you do and everything changes for years. Yes, no. You know, it's these small things that would take you to the place where you want to go. It's all about the small things. It's all about the tiny things that you do every day.
Yeah.
Actually, something happened to me several months ago where I was thinking, I was listening to somebody and he said, oh, I've been doing this for the last 35 years. You know, every single day I would wake up at 5 a.m. and I eat these and then I exercise and whatever, you know. And I was like, man, that's awesome, you know. And then I would see someone else and be like, yeah, for the last 10 years in my marriage, I've been doing this and this and that, you know. And I'm like, man, every single day, he's been doing that every single day. And then I thought of myself, like, okay, what have I done every single day for the last whatever years, right? For the last year, you know, every single day, I'd be like, okay, I've eaten, you know, like
step one, you've eaten. That's a good start.
And I've got to the bathroom, you know, but there was nothing that I could see like, man, okay, I've been doing this every single day for these many years, right? Yeah, okay, yeah, I read the Bible, whatever, you know, but it wasn't like this consistent thing. So just having the discipline of doing it again and doing it again and doing it again, it builds this resilience that as a leader you will need when things get tough.
Absolutely. No, thank you. That's awesome because I think that's the best takeaway. You know, as we start wrapping up, I hope we have more time, man. But as we start kind of wrapping up this episode, it starts with the little things, with the daily things, the daily disciplines. You know, you might be thinking, I'll start when I'm a leader, but no, start now. Like, what's something, I love that mentality. I'm going to start using it. Like, okay, what would a great leader, and whatever you think is a great leader, you know, find the great leader, whether, you know, be Craig Show, talk about like Robbie or someone like that. Like, you can just say, okay, what would Jesus do in this moment? You know, what would a great leader do in this moment? And something that you can start, because I want to just encourage everyone who's watching, is that don't count yourself out. Don't count yourself out because of your experience, because of your family situation. Understand, we all come from different families. Your parents might be divorced. You might live in a single parent household, and you might be thinking, I can't lead anybody. Look what I've done, or look where I come from. But be encouraged that what leadership does, it doesn't take into account your circumstances. It takes into account your attitude in the discipline. So Robbie, man, dude, thank you for being with me, man. Thank you just for spending, I know you're a busy guy, and for all my bilingual guys, check out his podcast, Construyendo Liderazgo. You're on Apple Podcasts, you're on Spotify, man. And
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud.
Follow him on Instagram. And even for all my gringo friends, my Americans who don't speak a lick of Spanish, hey, it's a great way to learn Spanish. It's a great,
do it.
You'll hear some colloquial Guadalajara words, like que chido, que onda, o sea. You learn all these different things, man. But, bro.
Literal.
En general, literal. Déjame te digo, o sea, literal. I caught that on when I went to visit you all the time. But man, thank you. Thank you for being with me, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. And this is awesome, man. Good job, bro. I love it.
Again, for everyone just watching, tune out of this episode and think, what would a great leader do right now? Whether you were doing school, whether you were at your job, what would a great leader do? And then work today on becoming that great leader. We'll see you in the next episode of The Andrew Ramon Show.